Hello viewers, welcome to Core for Any. If you hear new, hit subscribe buttons and notification bell so you can never miss any our incredible content. Node.js app and backend API inside. Today we need to see this here the right stop API we need to develop here. First of all, we need to declare here the post methods. We need to write down here the app.post and to write down here API slash write stop. Then after request like this. Now we need to define here the helper dot logs and to print this here the request parameters. We need to print this here the request dot body. We need to print this here. Now we need to save inside the request object this request body like this. Now we need to check this here the access tokens. First of all, this valid or not. So we need to check this here and to write down here the check access tokens and to write down here the request object dot header class. Need to pass this here. Then after we need to write down here the response object. We need to give this here and need to get here the callbacks. If valid, then to return here the valid users, verify these tokens and to get this here the user data. We need to get here the returns and to call this here the user callbacks. We need to get this here. Now this is our the callings and to check this here. Now need to check this here the required parameters. We need to check here. If check parameters valids, need to give this here the response object first of all, then to request object need to give here and to check here the which parameters need to need this here. First of all, need to give this here the booking ID, and then after need to pass this here the driver ID, and then after need to give this here the drop of latitudes, drop of longitudes, then after need to give this here the if collects here the toll text, then to give this here the toll text parameters, and last parameters is the right locations. You need to save locations JSONs. Driver up inside you need to save this here the start right to end right need to save inside the JSONs in the locally in the app sites, then to pass here the JSONs here and to check this here the which kilometers need to points need to take and to calculate here the actual kilometers for this rides for use this here the ride locations inside need to get this here the array moving path we need to get this here the one point to another point for the specific need to listening here the chain locations we need to save inside the our database in local in app sites like this need to need this here the parameters need to check here, and then after so need to if where it is then to get this here the callbacks events and to call here like these functions and to like this need to getting this here, and then after we need to write down here the more important parts. We need to app this and to brain of these functions we need to write down here. First of all, need to write down here the where stops times need to need this here. First of all, need to write down here the stops time is equal to need to write down here the helper dots need to servers YY MM DD HH MM SS need to call these functions here, and now need to write down here the right location strings and to write down here the double quotes like this, and then write down here the wheres right locations array, and we need to read this here the parameters. We need to parse this here the JSON parsers, and we need to use this here the parameters. So request objects dot right locations. We need to write down here the right locations. Like this, we need to get this here the parameters and to get this here the response. Now another variables we need to declare here the counting here the total kilometers. We need to calculate here the 2 points between the we need to get this errors and to count this here the kilometers and to write down here the set as a 0 like this settings here. Now need to use this here the array and need to one by one down to calling this here and to get this here the value and to set here. First of all, so need to write down here the index of I need to write down here. Need to write down here the call for each methods. We need to call this here the ride location array and to call this here the for each and location detail. Then after need to get here the index value and to call this here the function operators need to call here. Now need to get this here the ride strings. Use these variables ride string, copy here and to paste this here like this value and to plus signs equal to plus or merge. Need to always context here the with array. Now we need to set this here the value. First of all, so we need to write down here the location details dot latitudes and longitudes. So need to need this here and need to concatenates against comma. Then after so need to call this here the another longitudes details dot. So need to call this here the longitudes and one more parameter. So need to add this here times. Here importance which time need to give this here the location details inside to get this here the time and bracket like this. You need to creating here and to write down here the comma and to write down here the semicolons and to forget here the plus signs. You need to given this here. Now we need to check this here. First of all, so need to write down here the index is equal to not equal to 0, not equal to 0. Then to calculate here the kilometers, you need to calculate because first index here the no end point start point not available. That's why I need to not calculate here the distance for the first index. After so need to again so need to get and to increase here the index is set here the ones. Then to previous index need to get this here the 0. That's why I need to calculate here the 2 points. First points and second points need to between the how many takes kilometers need to calculate here. Now need to call this here the helper dot distance methods need to call this here and to write down here the right array. First of all, need to give this here the starting points. So need to give this here the index 0. We need to call this here to write down here the right locations array and index minus ones. We need to call this here and to call here the parameters as a longitudes, not latitudes, not longitudes. We need to use this here the latitudes. Use this here the latitudes parameters. We need to pass this here. Then after we need to give this here the longitudes or minus one indexed. Now we need to get this here the location details and to give this here the latitudes and longitudes we need to give this years location details And to get this here the longitudes for this value dot longitudes. Like this, you need to get this here the kilometers and to write down here the plus signs. You need to calling this here like this. And to get this here the value and to calculate here. Now need to print this here the total kilometers. So need to print this here the helper d logs and to write down here the total kilometer. Total kimi plus you need to give this here total kimi and to print this here. Now need to write down here the db query and to get here the price information because we need to need this here the calculate here the our price and final price we need to given this here the cancel complete this rights and to cut this here the amounts and to calculate here first of all need to write down here the stars need to write down here the price details tables need to call this here from price detail give this here the alias pd and now need to write down here the inner joins to write down here inner join and to write down here the booking detail as need to give this here the bd and on methods need to call this here the bd dot price id equal to bd dot price id and another inner join need to call this here inner join and to write down here zone list as need to give this here zl on methods need to call this here zl dot need to call this here the zone id is equal to bd dot zone id like this calling here and another things you need to call here now need to set here the where conditions need to write down here the bd dot booking id is equal to question mark like this need to calling this here request dot request object dot booking id need to call this here and to get this here the error and to calling this here the results and call this here the return like this need to calling this here the functions and to get this here the results now need to check this here this results length more than 0 else parts if not get this value then to return this here the conjunctions status 0 and to write down here fail methods write stop and like this print here if you get this here the data then to put like this here the informations and to save this here but now need to get this here the where helper dot gets here the durations time durations need to given this here set here the stop timers and to call this here the helper dot server MySQL dates, and to call this here the dates results zero index dots, need to give this here the start time, and need to write down here the total minute, and also need to duration in minutes, need to get this years in duration string. Now this is callback functions, and to calling this years like this adds years. Now need to write down here one more things, need to write down here the tax amount total, right, is equal to set here the zero, like this gets years. Now need to first of all need to save these informations in our database, because these red are the completes. Now first of all need to calculate here the amounts. First of all need to get this here the durations of the total minutes, and now need to first of all need to calculate years, need to go inside the booking times, need to calculate these amounts, need to use these years, need to copy here these amounts, and to copy here. Then after we need to go here and to put this here the data, we need to calculate here first of all the kilometers, write down here if total kilometers, need to calculate here total kilometers, results, and to get this here the value as a 0, and to check here the mean. Yeah, need to set here the minimum kilometers bigger, and to check this here the total kilometer and bigger, and to set here the total kilometers as a minimum kilometers, so need to set this here parse plot, and to results, give this here the this value, like this we need to set here the conditions. Now we need to calculate here the amounts for the kilometers base price, like this need to calculate here first of all, and to write down here the passport plot, and to give this here base price, base charge. Then after we need to calculate here the kilometer charge, need to get here the total kilometers multiply by, need to give this here the value, and to set this here the per kilometer charge. Then after need to charge here again for the minute charge, need to apply here, copy here this value, and to paste this here, and to write down here the total minute, and multiply by the minute per minute charge, need to apply these figures. Then also need to write here the booking charge, need to set here, Like this, we need to call this years and to calculate years. This is the amounts we need to calculate here. Need to get this here the amounts for these users. Need to check here. Now need to check here the amounts. Request dot checks here the minimums. Minimum bigger than amounts. Then to call this here the amounts as a minimum. Like this sets here and to configure this here like this way. Now need to calculate here the total amounts. We need to calculate here the multiply by the hundreds. Then to give this here the text value and to calculate here the total amounts like this value. Maybe booking charge and get this here the amounts, total amounts, text amount. This is the gets here the text amount. This is the total amounts. Gets here the driver amounts. Then after to get this here the ride commissions. Here's and to no need this years also no need this years remove years. Like this, we need to calling this years and to get this here the ride commissions. Need to calculate this years. Now we need to call this here the update the information related to these rights. Need to calling this here the and to save inside the database new price and final the price we need to updates inside our database and to displaying here for these users. Now to write down here the query db query and to call this here the update query to write down here the update booking detail as need to give this here the bd size like this. Then after need to write down here the inner join service detail as need to give this here the sd and write down here the on methods need to call this here the sd dot service id is equal to bd dot service id. Like this need to call this here for the inner join for the service. Write down here the inner join and to call this here user details as need to give this here the dd for the drivers and to write down here on methods call this here dd dot user id is equal to bd dot driver id plus signs call this here another inner joins need to use this here for the user joins inner join like this user detail As need to give this here UD for user details and to write down here only UD dot user ID dot booking BD dot user ID and to write down here the plus signs. Like this need to calling this here and now to another inner joins need to call this here payment details. As need to give this here UD need to call this here the PD and to write down here the one methods PD dot and to set this here the payment ID is equal to BD dot payment ID. Need to call this here the inner joins. And now need to set here the some status we need to update for these results. Call this here the set methods. Now need to write down here the BD dot booking status. Set here the question mark. Now we need to set here the BD dot total text. Maybe we need to forget seers. We need to include here the total text. For the calculate here the amounts load. Need to write down here request object dots need to set here total text like this. To add this here total amount inside the total text need to set here because we need to forget here the total text set here the value for the total text. Now pd dot need to set this here the durations question mark and then after need to write down here the pd dot amt amounts then pd dot drop latitudes and longitudes need to set this here question mark bd dot long question mark like this sets here. Now need to set here the payment status pd status is equal to set here the one then after pd dot payment date is equal to need to write this need to set here the now because we use cash payment that's going to directly set here the now times because always need to set here. And after need to change this here the dd dot status need to set here the activated, set here one. Then same as need to user status need to change here is equal to, we need to write down here one, like set here. And then after need to update here the another payments related information, so need to update here. First of all need to set here the stop time bd dot time is equal to set here the now is. Then after we need to set this here the text amount, so need to give this here the bd dot set here the question mark. Now need to update here the driver commissions related information, so need to update inside the payment details. First of all need to set here the tm empty question mark to already given here not use, need to use this here the drivers amounts this here. Then pd dot, we need to call this here x amount, because need to always get here the finals price, we need to set this here. Then after ride commissions need to set this here. Like this we need to updating here the data. And now need to set here the where conditions bd dot booking status. Set the condition. Then bd dot, and to set this here the bd dot drivers id is matters here question mark and conditions. Write down here bd, need to write down here the booking status question mark smaller than this status. Like this need to set here the conditions and to calling this here. Then after need to pass here the parameters value of the question mark. Then after to get this here the results like this here. Need to check this here the value, copy here and to paste this here, format this text. Now need to write down here if results affected row more than say situations status 0 and to return this here message MSQL. Now need to pass here the one by one the value need to given this here. First of all to give this here the booking status need to write bs dot complete And after need to give this here the total text, need to calculate here the request object dot total text. And after need to give this here the durations of the inside the minutes to what is here kilometers. ED. 10 this year estimate distance. Now need to change this year's this value total kilometers. Then after we need to set this year's duration total minute. Maybe we need to give this here the string is better duration string. Then to set here the amounts of the totals, give this here the total amounts. Then after we need to set this here the request object dot prop latitudes request object dot prop longitudes. Now need to set here the text amounts. So need to give this here's the total amounts. Then afterwards driver amounts need to give this here the driver. Then afterwards need to set this here the text amounts. Text amounts need to set this here. Write commissions we need to set this here as a write commissions. Then after we need to give this here the booking ID request object dot booking ID. Then after we need to set this here the driver ID user object dot user ID. Then after booking status need to check this here the BS complete and to pass this here the value. And then after we need to get this here the this response and to call this here the remove. Call this here booking information details pass here request object dot booking ID. Then to pass this here the user types need to set this here the to status and pass here the results. Now need to get here the user here's paste this here. Get this here the results user ID. Then after need to give this here the some information to pass this here the booking status SB complete bold text request object dot told Set here amount, total amount. Then after need to pass this here the duration string, total distance, and to pass here total kilometer. Payment type, reasons, got and message. Right, stop. And to give this here the right stop, sockets need to add this here. Copy here this response data. Remove here. Complete threads. Like this, need to firings here the push. Like here, one like this. You need to calling this here the all informations and to return this here the response. Status set here once payload is equal to past here results 0. Message and to write down right complete success. Like this need to calling this yes. If you like this video, please give the thumbs up. If you're new user, so please subscribe my channels and press the notification bell icon. You can get every new video notifications and awesome content. If you have any questions, so please write down the comment sections. I will help you and sort out your issue. Everyone, have a nice day. Goodbye and take care.